So I can see here 2 students. Okay, so many students here. Good. Now you can see the participation. Okay, the time is running, so please try to write very quickly. Yes, the participation 12%. Okay. Good. So I can see good answers from you guys. Yes. Good. Gamal Suleiman, watch the film. So students will see the answers, they will learn from each other, and they will participate more, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah, very much. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I was hoping that we can have more time with you and knowing more about this amazing website.
Inshallah, we'll have more. Inshallah.
Yes, absolutely. There has to be another another webinar for all of you, because the information and the applications that you are presenting are extremely valuable. And I think that we all want more of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah, for your time and for joining us today.
You're welcome, Ms. Isra, and thanks for the attendees, other teachers. Thank you very much, and I hope that you had a nice time with me. And all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now we are going to tackle a new topic in our agenda, which is discovering learner skills to promote differentiated classrooms. And for this topic, we have 2 special speakers with us today. We have Miss Amina Moin and Miss Ambreen Malik. So let's start by introducing Miss Amina. Miss Amina is the founder of Healing Hub with Masters in Psychology. She's also a cognitive behavior therapist, neurolinguistic practitioner, life coach, and counselor. For 12 years, Miss Amina has been working with various cases, including family building, parents and child relationships, and behavioral management for special needs children. So let's all welcome Miss Amina Moin, and she will be sharing tips for handling behavioral, emotional, and social challenges for differently abled children, including structuring and organizing classrooms, creating a support network, flexibility, positivity, and patience. So I just need to ask Mr. Abdullah to stop your screen sharing, please. Mr. Abdullah.
Okay. Pause share. Okay. So is it okay now? Yes, is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So welcome, Miss Amina. And thank you for your time and being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Just a minute, I'll just start the PPT and I'll...
We can see your screen. It's clear. So you may start.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. You can hear me. Hello, everyone. And first of all, thank you so much, Isra, for having me here. I really feel like honored to be a part of this. First of all, I think that the term inclusion has been really nicely been told by Miss Louise. And it was really impressive because everything that I wanted to talk about was much in that in her talk. Okay. No, first of all, I will just take a quick moment with you all just to see why inclusion is important, basically. Basically, we need to understand and we need to accept diversity. We just can't do that we take some people along and we leave the others behind. It is just like we have to accept the diversity for the society to grow. And for that purpose, basically, I was working as a psychologist, and then I realized that there are so many parents who come to me for their counselings because they have special needs kids, and they get so frustrated in all this fight and all this struggle of making their kids acceptable in the society, that I wanted to do something for them. And that was the time when I did the special needs SEN course. And I started working with the same clients, kids, girls also. I don't know, luckily or unluckily, but you can say that I just got few girls. Up till now, I haven't worked with boys, but I'm pretty much sure that it's more or less the same. Anyways, now coming to the thing of that behavior management strategies, the first thing is that we need to, as mentioned before, that we need to identify. We need to see that what abilities and what strengths the child holds. So, for example, that the Einstein and Newton's story is like famous with everyone, and they were sent back home and they were told, but their mothers knew and their families worked with them and they never gave up. So this is what actually gives the parents of it, like you can say, they strengthen the parents that yes, something can be done. And the single curriculum thing needs to be changed. And especially the stigma and the name special education, that also needs to be worked on. And yes, as far as I'm seeing now that this is being done, that they are not labeled as special needs, they are like differently abled, which is the right way to address anything. And now coming to the strength, that it is important for both the special education teachers and the students to remember that everyone is good and has something strong in them. So the teacher needs to find that. For the whole class, it is kind of like you can say that there are different tests and different techniques that can be run, and the teachers need to be trained basically for that. Then I will come to small tips that I usually give the parents as well as the teachers, that organizing the class. These kids get really upset when the things are messed up or in a, you can say, in a form of a hassle and all that. So keeping your classroom organized will help them to minimize the stress and distraction. So this is one of the main key points that the teachers need to know. And even at home, they don't like, they get very upset. They have their own routines and they have their own, you can say, way of everything should be in place and all those things. Then coming to the next thing, which is quite related to organizing the class, it is like keeping things simple. If you break down the task, like you manageable steps, and you make it simple for them to understand, then it is actually less challenging for your own self also, for the student as well as the teacher. It gets really like, you can say, for example, I give you, I'll explain it with an example. Like you are going for a school trip, or if you are taking your child for a trip, they will ask you again and again because they have that impatience. And if they're asking, are we yet there? Are we yet there? When will we go? What are the timings and all those things? So what we tell the clients is that you break the journey and you break the points also. Like you can tell them that, okay, we are going to the mall first, or you can say we are going to the fueling station first. So that is the first stop. So when they reach there, it will be like you can say that it will break their focus, their challenge, and it will distract them also. So breaking down the journey, and then you can tell them that yes, we are going to the bridge, or we are going to the any place that you are actually like kind of going. So breaking it up will help you. Similarly, when even in the case of tasks at in daily time, in daily schedule, you need to break their you can say their challenges. Like for example, if you're giving them a worksheet for one day, you can tell them to, okay, do the first 5 questions and then bring it to me, and after that you will do the rest, because they might not have that whole you can say focus, and this will direct their energies. So this is and try to explain it in the most simplest way so that you can cover everyone under the same umbrella. It's not that you have all same IQ kids in the same environment. Then coming to the teacher and student relationship, you need to set certain expectations. Like you need to have a very clear communication with them. You have to have an open communication with them. Actually, some adults say that it is not a good idea to accommodate one person in such a big group, a different person in a big group. But the whole point of teaching is to use variety of methods. So the teacher should know which method works for which student. If the child, for example, if child is throwing tantrums, we have so many cases like that, that the kids don't let their parents go, and some days they are really like clingy and all that. Instead of making a big deal out of it, you can bring in the parent and you can fade them slowly when the child's anxiety reduces, especially in the young classes, especially in the kindergarten classes. This behavior really works, that you can actually like see what works. So there are various things, the trial and error kind of things that you can see. And then coming to one of the most important things is take each child as an individual. Don't take them as their diagnosis, that he's ADHD, he's a Down syndrome. No, he or she has some name and some identity and is a human being. So take them like you say that this is Abdullah, for example. This is Najla, for example. So these are this is the way they will get a connection with you. They will this is the way they will feel a bonding towards you. You need to they will get closer to you, right? So these are and then coming to the very important thing, which is definitely the most important thing in SEN and inclusive education, is positive attitude is the most important quality for anyone who works with children of special needs, especially. So what you need to do is you need to be very positive. There are good days and there are bad days. It is not necessarily that they are learning every day or they are happy every day. Just like we can say a normal kid or the other diverse kind of kids. Similarly, there are they also have variations in their days. So just be positive towards them and encourage them. Encouragement is really like even for a small thing that they have achieved, whatever they achieve, even if it is something small, like they have done 5 questions from a worksheet and they are expecting your appraisal for that, give them, celebrate that success with them. Don't think that the rest of the kids are not demanding it, so you ignore that child. No, please don't do that. This is how you will have a bond also with them. They might always know there are kids who are not very communicative. There are kids who are not very expressive. So they might not even react to your praise sometimes, like you're clapping, wow, you did it, but they might not respond. But deep in their heart, they will appreciate it and they will notice it. So one more thing I have actually, you can say that come across is the acceptance from the peer group, that okay, she's different. They don't accept those kids. So that is also one of the teacher's responsibility. If the teacher is extremely accepting and encouraging towards these kids, towards the differently abled child, the peer and the class will automatically get a little more comfortable, you can say. And they will also try to have a bond with that, you can say. Anyways, then coming to, instead of focusing on the negative that is happening in your class, focus on the positive, which means that it basically what the if you are if there are if a child is throwing tantrums, or if a child is crying very loudly, you can focus on the positive that the kid does instead of the negative. We try to handle it in a positive way and try to take out the positive from that. Then there is yeah, this is actually, research also shows that many kids, the more responses and reactions they get from you, the negative behavior they will give you inversely, the more positive reactions they get from you, the more positive behavior you will see in them. And this applies for all kinds of kids, all, even like regular routine children, they also respond more to the positivity than negativity, than negative reinforcement. Okay, then there is like, for example, there is lunch break time, and the kids are making Legos, and that kid, for example, there is one kid who is not letting go of the Lego, and the teacher is trying to convince him and trying to tell him that it's time for the lunch break is over and you have to get back to your studies, and he's resistant. Do not argue or resist with them. You need to understand how you are going to handle this situation. You can talk it out that, okay, let's finish one tower today, and then we can come back in the second break, or we can come back tomorrow to this activity, this Lego competition. So you have to give them alternatives. The more you are communicative and the more you are, the more they are productive towards you, the more you are communicative and positive towards them and less critic, the more they have a chance of growth. Then coming to the next point, that ignoring. Sometimes it is not very advisable, but yes, sometimes ignoring bad behavior is also a good strategy. Because ignoring because the kids of certain ages, like teenagers or the elementary school kids, they're very smart, and the teacher's approval means to them. So if they are like continuously throwing tantrums, or they are like making, you can say, doing some bad habit and making some odd noises in the class, or they are poking their nose or doing something that is not very pleasant for the whole students, you can just ignore them and show them that you're ignoring them, like deliberately ignoring them. That will also help them leave that behavior. Then coming to the most important thing, one of the most important factors that we always tell, that this is not going to work without the parents and teachers support. So basically the parents, the therapist, the psychologist, and the teachers, they all need to be on the same page. They should know that how they are going to communicate, how they are going to work on some certain problems, some behavioral issues, some emotional issues, some work-related issues. So everything is actually like kind of, it's very important. And the more these all are in the loop, you can say that the more beneficial it is for the student, for the kid, for the child. It is beneficial when all of them are on the same page and they work together in harmony. So this is one of the major factors, because many times actually parents, I will not go on that part, but just a small thing, that parents sometimes they do not accept the fact, because they have other kids to take care of, and same applies for the teachers, that they have 20 students of some other IQ and 1 or 2 of some other differently able abilities. So they are sometimes frustrated, sometimes they are tired. So what they do is it's very easy to ignore them, and it's very easy to be less communicative with them. But this is where the teacher training basically works, and we need to change our mindsets for that basically. Now coming to the plan, this is actually this works like, you can say that it works like magic or something. You need to go to a class. Whenever you go to your school, you enter your class, there is something in your mind, you know, that you have to do certain story reading, for example, or you have to do some certain worksheets or whatever it is. So for these kids, you need to have a plan A. This is the plan B. Plan B. Plan A is for the whole of the class, that usually works out for the average that you can say in the graph, wherever the average falls. But when we come to the other extremes of the graph, then you can say that where these all the exceptions come, then you need to have a plan A and a plan B. Plan A is you communicate with them, as we mentioned before, right? You can, okay, you're not in the mood to read the whole story today. Okay, let's break it down. Let's read half of it for me. And even if that is not working, and the child is anxious and he's panicked, for example, if it is ADHD, or if it is any other dyslexia or any other child, then you can do is you can just give them a calm down corner. This is a must for, should be in every school, every class. If the class is all making them anxious and the sounds are making them beat their hearts so fast, and like in autistic, sometimes they get very upset with the noises and all that. So you can reduce all those things and let their anxiety settle, and then you can bring them back to the class, and you can then you can start working on them. But you need to identify this thing, that what is actually bothering them and how are you going to handle those things. So yeah, this is for the plans. And then in the end, I would just, I think I went a little faster. Anyways, in the end, I will just summarize it and try to tell that find success in every individual. Like every human being is born for a reason, for a cause. And trying to push everyone under one curriculum and trying to go for the average and focusing on them is not going to help the society grow. For the growth of a society, for the balance of a society, it is really, really important that we let we include these, the differently abled children, we understand them, we accept them, and we make people around them accept them also. People around us accept them also. This is actually very important because there are stigmas attached. And that is the main thing. Even if they go in inclusion, the two girls I'm talking about, one is in elementary and one is in grade, a little higher grade. And they both are such a big target of bully, unfortunately, because the girls see that she's different from them, and they are not ready to accept the difference. The teachers are ready to accept the student and they are ready to work on the student, but they are not. But the teachers are not working on the bullying or the fact that she needs acceptance. That is where basically the mental health is getting affected. And just like everyone's mental health is important, these differently able kids' mental health is also very, very important. Thank you so much. This is from my side.
Thank you, Ms. Amina. It was very insightful and very informative. And I'm sure that there might be some questions regarding students' behavior in classes. So if anyone in the audience is like struggling with any of your students or need some support or need advice from Ms. Amina, please feel free to add your questions in the chat pod now, and I'll be addressing them to Ms. Amina so she can help you out. Any questions from the audience to Ms. Amina? Okay, so Ms. Ambreen says that she have a few questions, but she will address them maybe after the session. So anybody else would like to share their questions, any experience that you've had with your mixed abilities classes? By the way, you can follow us on YouTube, so you can have access to the recording of this session later. You will find in the chat pod now the link to our YouTube channel. So you can simply follow it. So Ms. Tasneem is asking here how we can help an ADHD student. So this question is for you, Ms. Amina.
Yeah, exactly. I think I hope my mic is still on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, for ADHD behavioral management, you again need to, these are the tips that I have given you, they are applicable for mostly all the special needs kids. For the ADHD specifically, you need to break it because they don't have that much temperament, you can say, or that much, what do you call it actually? Like they can't sit for very long. They have that personality issue. So you need to come in the class with the plan, as I mentioned, And when they're getting very hyper, because especially in small kids, they start crying and they won't stop, and then you will like lose your head. So you should exactly know how to distract them. You should exactly know how to engage them with some other activity, some puzzle you can give them, some other things, because what actually unfortunately is one of the problems in current days is when the ADHD mom cannot handle the kid, they give them the gadget. And I think that is a very big, that is actually not a very good solution. But yes, for classrooms, the teachers can give them a puzzle, or they can give them a storybook to read, or give them blocks to make. So basically, they need, you need to increase, change their direction of the energy, because they have a lot of energy and they do not know how to channel it. So how are you going to channel it? That is, you give them an alternative for that. I hope it is helpful.
If I may share also another tip, because this is actually something personal, because my son actually has ADHD, and this is something that seemed a bit useful to him when he's in class. That first of all, like whenever he feels like, as you've mentioned, like when he's overwhelmed or having like excessive energy that he cannot channel, so his teachers would let him, like, let's say maybe stand up or maybe move around for a minute or two in the classroom, so that they can actually help him to release some of the energy that he has. And they try to time it with him, like whenever, let's say, he has a certain task to do, whether it's solving a certain problem or equation or writing something from the board. So once he's done with that, he can have, like, let's say 2 or 3 minutes of moving around, okay, without disturbing his friends, of course. But since he's already in a mixed abilities class, so there are some of his friends are actually like having the same issues. So this is something that was quite useful to him and helped them go through the day smoothly.
Yeah, that's actually very right. There is a very good question that I would actually like to. How should we deal with the parents of other kids in the class? I can't see the name. You can check who's asking this. But this is very important, actually. I know personally a case where the girl, she stopped going to the school because they were calling that child that she's special needs child. And the mother was very upset with all this thing because the kids were calling them special needs, special needs. And this is where actually the parents' responsibility come in. And how can the teachers help this? With every parent-teacher meeting, with every notice that you send home, with everything, there should be a bold line that we accept diversity, we accept inclusion, and we welcome it. And the teacher, the bullying ones, or the kids who are not being taught these things, or who are not being taught these ethics in home, they should be actually like, you can say that they can be sent to the counselors. They can, if the parents are not ready to talk about it, or if the parents are not taking you can say giving attention to this issue. So it is entirely possible that the school counselor or the psychologist in the school, they can help them and make them accept that they are part of our society, and we accept them in the school. So you also better accept them in the class. And there will be some consequences for that, especially when the kids are very good in intelligence, and they have a high IQ, they look down upon the other students. This is a very common practice, unfortunately, all over the world. But this is actually when the teacher will give them a little ignorance for their behavior, and a little acceptability of this kind of behavior is not acceptable in the class, then automatically it will start coming in their behavior and in their training. And maybe actually they will in the you can say in the future, they might actually like become supportive for them, and they will be you never know that maybe they will actually help them, help the society grow, help them, help these kids hold their hands and walk them through the social barriers.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Thank you very much. Yeah, Miss Ambreen is saying yes, psychologists and counselors are considered to be negative and a taboo in some cultures, and there
Yeah,
must be more
taboo
awareness
things.
on this. Yeah, absolutely
Yes,
true. I
yes,
totally
yes,
agree with that.
yes, yes, yes.
So I
Actually, we
think,
definitely need to break the stigmas and the taboos. This is really that's why I said that first of all, actually, we need to change. Even when I was doing the SEN course, I was actually thinking that why is it labeled special education needs? Because this term itself is a stigma. It is a label that you're putting on the child. So first of all, we need to change this. And everywhere, this is kind of a campaign I am doing right now with all everybody I know. And everywhere I go, I tell them that there is no such thing. They are just differently abled. And even a common, even in a class, not all the students are of the same IQ or of the same, you can say, capability. So why putting a label on them? There are students who have a little, you can say, who are not very, as I think the first speaker, I forgot the name, she mentioned that everyone can't be a mathematician, everyone can't be a doctor, everyone can't be an engineer, everyone can't be even an artist. So this is all their strength, they're born with it. So when the elders accept this, automatically it will start coming in our generations. And I think this is the right moment that all of us, being mothers, we teach our kids that there is no such thing as special needs. They're not different from us. They're just different from us. And every individual is different. Even two apples are not same. I always tell that how can two humans be same? There are not even two apples that are same. So yeah, the awareness workshops is a must. Teachers training is a must. Students training is a must. And stigma from the study, from these kids. Anything else?
yes. Your voice was a bit like interrupted at the end, but we totally agree with what you've mentioned and what you've said, and we thank you very much for such a valuable session and wonderful information and tips that I'm
Most
sure
welcome. And honestly, I feel honored to be a part of this. I really, because this is the new agenda in my life right now. So it is exactly on spot, basically. It's close to my heart also.
Yes, that's true, and we
Thank
can
you so
actually
much.
feel
Thank
that.
you.
I can see that. I can see that in the way you speak and how you're passionate about it. And jazakallah khair, and wishing you all the best, and thank you very much. And I'm sure that again we will definitely need another session to get more in depth with the management and behavior management tips and techniques for
Definitely.
all of our teachers there. Thank you.
Absolutely. That would be great. That would be great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Ms. Amina. Thank you
All
very
right.
much for being with us today.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So now we have Miss Ambreen, and Miss Ambreen will be also discussing the topic of behavior management, and she will be discussing further the the strategies on behavioral management with overlapping qualities. But first, let me introduce Miss Ambreen to you. Miss Ambreen is an amazing educator. She's a primary school coordinator holding her master's in educational leadership with 11 years of experience in curriculum mapping, designing differentiation courses. And she's also passionate about adapting curriculums to meet the needs of mixed abilities learners. So thank you, Ms. Ambreen, for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Isra. That's so kind of you. And hi, everybody. Good evening. Isra, there seems to be some kind of a glitch because the voice goes on and off. Either it's my end or probably.
We can hear you clearly. I can hear you clearly.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Isra. As Dr. Amina was talking about students is required. Just a second. I will reshare my screen. Just give me a minute, please.
Sure, take your time.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, there seems to be a little bit of a problem. Okay, done. So my topic is on mixed ability learners post-pandemic behavioral management. I'll be talking about the overlapping qualities that we do need to look at as educators. And yes, Dr. Amina, when she was talking about the parental intervention and all that, but I'll be talking about how we need to have the school-wide intervention. So you as a teacher, as an educator, what do you need to do in order to make sure that all your students who have different abilities, whether they are on level, below level, above level, or any sort of disability they have towards learning, how you're going. So we'll talk about emotional competence and understanding of human thinking and classroom organization. We have looked at the classroom organization with the previous session, but before that, I'd like to actually tell you what the classroom management is defined as per the traditional term. It is a set of rules that a teacher is supposed to follow. She's supposed to follow, and she's not given the liberty or the flexibility to mold her ideas and her organization to fit the needs. That was the traditional thinking. But as per the latest trends and researchers, I have mentioned them, that they say that it's a collection of non-academic instructional classroom procedures of teaching pro-social behavior, as well as preventing and reducing inappropriate behavior. So when we look at classroom management, we are not only following a set of academic instructions, but we are also looking at a set of non-academic instructions and how we can incorporate it into a wide school curriculum. Okay, so, but before that, we need to look at our class and decide who needs help. Okay, children who need special educational needs, they have some difficulties, some sort of difficulties towards education. It's not necessary that you're going to have, or any school is going to have a set of students who are going to be perfect. You can have some students who are showing underlying conditions, but they are not identified, right? So I have categorized these into 3 points for you. That first, we have a category of students who significantly have great difficulty in learning than the majority of these children of the same age. Secondly, they have a disability which prevents or hinders them from making use of educational facilities of a kind. And the third, they are under compulsory schoolage. Now that is one aspect that most educators or schools or even parents do not look at, that if your child is underage in a class, he's going to be slower than the rest of his classmates. And that really does make a difference in his educational timeline. Like for my son, I have a son who's in grade 2. He is underage. According to his class, he is 7 and he's in grade 2. Rest of the kids in his class are maybe 7 to 8 months older than him, or even 6 months. What I want to say is that when you have children at a primary level or elementary level, even a month or 2 months gap in that age in the classmates really shows a difference. And as an educator, as a teacher, you can see the difference when you're teaching these children. Okay, so we have to make sure that we categorize our students to their needs. What makes up a whole student or a whole child? Academically, we look at them, then we look at their behavior, then we look at the social, emotional well-being of that child. Most educators or schools are normally trying to finish curriculum, trying to finish the syllabus that they have designed or go as per the pacing calendar. So we are mostly looking at the academics of that child. When the child goes home, the parents are focused on the behavior of that child. What happens? We neglect the social, emotional well-being of that child. Eventually, when this child comes to you in the class, he's going to show certain behavior, which we will categorize as inappropriate in the school. When this child goes home, the parent is going to call it a tantrum or, going to ignore the child, but nobody realizes that the children, not only do they need academics or behavioral intervention, they need social, emotional intervention, which Dr. Amina before me has gone in depth with the topic. So now, as an educator, these are the 3 points that I would like you to focus on with me: the emotional competence, the understanding of human thinking, and the organization from a parent's point of view and from a teacher's point of view. I would like to ask you the components of effective classroom organization and behavioral management. When we look at the special needs children or students in general, we try as a teacher to maximize structure and predictability in the class. And as a teacher, we need to post, teach, review, and provide feedback on expectations. We also need to actively engage students in observable ways. Now, observable ways means that you are observing the action of the child, what has triggered a certain behavior, what happened prior to the incident that happened, what did he do while he was while he was having the behavioral meltdown or an inappropriate behavior that he was displaying in the class. So these are some ways that that you can observe while you are actively engaging them in an effective classroom environment. A fourth is that when you want to have an effective classroom, you also need to have a continuum of strategies to acknowledge appropriate behavior. It is very important that we address the inappropriate behavior or the punitive behavior in an appropriate strategy manner as an educator, as a grown-up, just not to discourage the child all the times. Now, classroom rules and routines. Most classrooms rules and routines are defined as identified standards for student behavior in the classroom and for particular activities. What happens in a classroom environment is we want the rules to be followed. We want the child to walk on the left. We want the child to sit with his legs under his table. We want the child to color only on the paper, but the teacher tends to be aggravated and she shows emotions when the child gets up from the seat or is moving around. We forget that, yes, the classroom rules do exist and we need to have an organized classroom, but we do not look at how we might trigger our behavior. Our emotional phase could trigger an anxious child. It could just be a trigger sign for him, or a child with an underlying ADHD case. So sometimes we do have students who do have underlying conditions, and if a teacher behaves in such a way that she's going to draw a line with the child during a classroom routine that she has set prior to the lesson, and she feels that the child has not followed it, anxious child in the classroom. Now, when we also look at the teacher management in the class, she has a list of appropriate behavior tokens. What do? All of us as educators, we are very prompt and very up to date when it comes to praising appropriate behavior. We have a list of things that we would do, list of actions that we take to highlight appropriate behavior in children. Now, what do? We specify and praise the child. We do differentiation reinforcement. We do token economies. By token economies, I mean that there's an incentive that you have set for the child if they show a good behavior in the class or during the activity, or there are group contingencies. Now, in group contingencies, when you have a group, you tend to make that appropriately behaved child the leader of the group, or you have assigned him the class activities. What happens to the social, emotional development and the well-being of other students when you're doing that? Most educators forget that when they are focusing on the behavior incentives for those who have behaved, they are further pushing down those children who need your attention, who need your supervision and your compassion when it comes to their social and emotional well-being. So I would take a minute over here and I would ask the people in audience that what do you do if a child is behaving inappropriately in your class? So is there any strategy that you have applied or you would apply if you have a child who has just had a complete meltdown during one activity in your class? Please put it down in the chat box. Okay. You acknowledge the students who are on task. Yes, that is when we are acknowledging the ones who are on best behavior. But what about the students who are having a meltdown or who need your attention or who are falling into the category of special needs? Try to motivate them, how positive reinforcement, try to engage them. I would try to stay calm and highlight his strengths to him. Yes, Haninze, that's something that I am going to talk about. Strategy is that if you want to stop a tantrum, you rapidly want to stop something that is happening, but it's going to give you a relief at the moment. But if you really, really want to have a positive classroom management for a longer term, you do it slowly. You find strategies that work best for your students in the class. You try to do it slowly. Rapid stopping of the behavior can fire back and have the student more aggressive than he was or she was before. Then provide immediate relief reinforcement to the teacher. But if you look at the positive classroom environment or the management strategy, there is no immediate relief for the teacher. But in the longer run, you will see that the strategies that you were trying to implement slowly are working and the child is coming on track towards his well-being, towards his academics, towards his behavior. It's going to last for a longer time. We teach the student and peers what not to do. Now, that's the very first thing as an educator, as a parent that we do. We tell them, no, please don't do that. Please don't touch that. Please sit down. Please do not stand up. What, in fact, we need to do is that we teach the student who is at a bad behavior or an inappropriate behavior and the rest of the peers, not pinpointing and isolating the child only. You are going to ask everybody and remind them of the positive classroom rules that the teacher has set. Now, this is a small environment I'm talking about. I'm talking about within the classroom. Okay, so we target the rules that we want. We do not talk about the rules that we do not want. Then we decrease positive self-statements or self-concept. That is punitive procedure. That is going to aggravate your child's behavior more than what your real expectations were. So what do? We increase positive self-statements. You bring out, you start encouraging, you start praising things that the child or the student is good at. We decrease positive attitudes towards school and school work. what happens is if your child is not behaving well, a teacher stops asking him to come out, lead a group, lead a task, answer the question. Normally, this is called passive aggressive behavior on a teacher's part. But what should she do instead? She should increase positive attitudes towards school and class and school work. Increase your praisal. The words that come out of you should be nurtured in a very nurturing tone. You should put aside what the child is not doing, but highlight what he has done. Give him something positive to look towards. Okay. Now, what happens with all these strategies that you do? This is going to cause tardiness, or they will drop out of your, sessions. They will not want to come to school or to study. They will withdraw themselves from whatever the teacher is trying to say or the parent is trying to say. Okay. But if you look at the positive classroom management, you're going to promote and enhance the participation of that child even more, whether the child is showing inappropriate behavior or not. Okay, the aggression that you thought you would suppress down is now going to go high because of your punitive procedures. Instead, what do we need to do? We need to build his emotions in such a way that he himself is going to stop showing aggression by asking him to recognize his emotions and how you're going to positively mold those emotions. Maybe the children who are a target or have an underlying anxiety issue or ADHD, they don't know how to identify their own emotions. So a teacher really needs to understand how and where the child comes from. Where did this behavior trigger from? So first off, we have to try and highlight what caused that aggression, what caused that behavior, the punitive, and for which we have to take extreme measures. Now, these are some strategies that the teachers can do on their part. And eventually what happens, it destroys the teacher-student relationship. The student starts disliking the teacher or the class and doesn't want to sit there, and he's going to just roam around, or she's going to roam around, and the parent comes complaining to the school that my child is not interested. And, so now we know that what causes that. We don't want to push the children away. We want to feel them included. So try not to have a punitive procedure strategy. Try to be more positive and more reflective of your actions than of the child in your class. Now, for additional information, there is an amazing paper that I came across, this research on classroom management in a California resource guide. Please do have a look at it. If you want, I can share it with you guys. It's a very well written and very well organized paper on how to have a positive classroom management strategy if the teachers are facing issues. It goes without saying, all of us do face behavioral issues in the class. Okay, moving on. Now we will talk about the social and emotional competencies checklist. We all know that well-being of a social and emotional well-being of a child are as important as the academics of the child. As an educator, I would tell you that for me, if any student is unhappy in the class, I would rather not have my academics go further before I attend to the social emotional needs of that child. If your child, if any student is socially not on the correct path, he's never going to excel or even let what you're teaching penetrate him. So our first goal should be to check if your students are socially and emotionally stable in your classroom environments. Here is a list of your checklist. I'm going to read them out, but I would also like you to check if this is what you do. Supporting social and emotional development is a core component of trauma-sensitive schools. Social and emotional competencies such as self-regulation, strong coping and problem-solving skills, and positive social connections buffer the effects of trauma and strengthen resilience. Trauma. The word trauma, very late in my own life, I came to know that trauma is not what is a physical hit. You know, all my life I used to think that only if you're in an accident, you have had trauma. But I was wrong. I wouldn't say recently, but very late, I found out that trauma could be you not being heard as a child, you having an abusive relation. By abusive, I mean you being bullied as a student at school. That could leave trauma. You must have seen an incident that has forever stayed in your mind and scarred you. That could be trauma. What happens? Everybody has a coping mechanism. If you don't talk about what has caused that trauma, it is forever going to linger on and become a behavioral issue in your social environments. Hence, you become a victim of suppression and emotional, competencies. Therefore, addressing trauma at the right time is very important. So always look at your students and how their behavior changes from day to day. It's not that this child has this specific problem, disability, he has a problem. No, children can have a trauma today and they might start throwing a tantrum a week later or 2 weeks later, and you don't know as a teacher or as a parent what happened to the child. He was fine 2 days ago. You need to go back. You need to talk to your child. Therapy. And again, like I said, the word therapy, counseling is a very negatively portrayed word in our societies, most of our cultures and societies, and in school. But however, I really feel this is some agenda that we need to stress and address as educators, as school, as involving the parents also. Here's the competencies checklist as an educator, what you need to do. So if you are looking at the emotional learning of your child, you have to look at the self-awareness. This is the ability to accurately recognize one's own emotions and thoughts and their influences on behavior. So if you are looking at your own self before you look at the child, you need to be self-aware of how you're going to react to your child's problem. Then the self-management. This is how you are going to regulate the emotions that you have just highlighted. Now, if you have a child who's throwing a tantrum, are you going to be angry? Are you going to take a hard step? Or are you going to first analyze that if a child is throwing a tantrum, what is your emotion and how can you deal with your emotion and then deal with the child's emotion? This is a very important step every teacher needs to take. Then you look at social awareness. The ability to take the perspective of the empathies with other forms, diverse backgrounds and cultures to understand social and ethical norms for behavior. Now, you need to know where the child comes from, what is his social interaction, what has triggered this behavior. If it hasn't been triggered in your class or in your lesson, then the relationship skills. This is the ability to establish and maintain healthy and rewarding relationships with diverse individuals and groups. Maybe there is something that triggered him in the group of people who are sitting in the class. So have a look at the relationships that he has built or he is going to build in the class, the competencies of those different nationalities and ethnicities and how they're going to work out for your child. Responsible decision-making. Then you come towards the responsible decision-making. Once you have evaluated all those 4 aspects, you're going to make a decision on how to deal with that tantrum that your child has shown. If, for example, there's a tantrum and you cannot deal, then comes the school-wide positive behavior intervention and support program. We generally call it RTI and PBIS. The RTI is the academic-based intervention, that if your child is academically lacking behind, you're going to focus on the academics. If your child is showing social emotional behavior, then you're going to do the PBIS. But what happens is when the school has to interfere, most of the schools do not build their curriculum to incorporate both the academic RTI RTI and PBIS. The recommended model of a school curriculum should be an evidence-based instruction and intervention plan, database decisions, screening and progress monitoring, and tiered interventions. Tiered interventions, I will just take you through that in a while, and team problem solving. Now, your curriculum should be based on the mixture or an amalgam of both the RTI and the PBIS. Now, the tier system, like we know, we have 3 categories. Category 1 is where 80 to 90% of the students need universal support. Now, this could be students with ADHD, anxiety, dyslexia, physical disabilities, any sort of disabilities they have. So they fall into the first category where they need all kind of support. Then you have tier 2, which is 5 to 10% of students. And this is just a little small group within the school that requires this kind of help, the school intervention plan. Then you have tier 3, that is individualized support, that maybe one class has one student who needs support. Now, again, the school-wide intervention, when you are designing a curriculum or any management designing a curriculum, needs to keep in mind that they need to have the academic systems plus the behavioral system to support the needs of their children. Now, here is one more model that fits well. It's called the ABC model. I would appreciate if you all take a minute to read it out. This is the best, one of the best way to have, to solve a problem. So you look at the attendance, the behavior, and the consequence. Okay, what happens before the behavior occurs? Observed behavior, and C stands for consequences, the positive or the negative results of that behavior. Most schools in the West follow the ABC intervention plan, and they have it embedded in their curriculums. Now, what happens is now after you go through the ABC plan, you formulate your strategies to understand and manage your behavior. So you have the problem solving approaches, where you're going to question, then you redirect the child, you make certain choices, or you allow your children to make choices, you use reasonable force while dealing with challenging behavior, record and reporting. Now, there are some incidents where we need to really report to the management, and then you evaluate behavior, and then you plan your individual learning plans or individual behavior plans. Now, those are tailored programs. Now, here are some practical suggestions that I have for you. If you have a behavioral issue in the class, play games with your children. They go a long way. They help you. They help the child know how to take turns, the patience, the teamwork, the concept of sharing, the ability to express appreciation, how to develop motor skills, listening skills, concentration. Now, no matter what kind of a learner you have, games go in all the way, and they strengthen relationships and build good sportsmanship also. Okay, you have to get their attention. I have listed down 3 games for you. So if you are short on ideas, please have your, you may implement these games in your class, and I'm sure your kids will also love it. This game is called Statues. So you have, this is a great game to play at the end of every lesson. So if you want to implement a positive behavior, you shout out on the count of 3 statue. And the first person who freezes, you allow them to be the leader of the line. So on the game goes till all the children in your class are. Now, this is going to be a really, a competitive game, and I hope it enforces good behavior. Then there's a heads down, thumbs up game that you could do with your children. And I'm sure most of you are aware of that. I remember playing that as a child also. Then there's a game called Apple Pie. So you have to have other students imitate voices and whisper to the blindfolded child, and the blindfolded child has to identify who said apple pie. Now, this is a great way to enforce behavior and group work. Okay, now developing behavioral skills. There are some more ideas that I have listed for you. What to do if your child is angry. You can play a game. Can you cool it off? Then there is one more. If they have excess energy, don't let it drop. There's a game that you pass on the ball and you don't let them drop. Reduce restlessness. Can you keep it? So they have to keep holding on to an object if they're very restless. And then there is money, money, money. If they are into mathematics or logistics, then you play money, money with them. You give them, you know, a group of objects and you tell them that you have to pay me this much in fake money, of course, and you take that from them. Raffle tickets, it's incentives for behavior. It's like you giving them a ticket to buy something in the canteen or however that goes. And then we have music marbles and a special day. Provide a positive start to or an ideal way. So that is how you should start. Now, to the end of my session, I have a case study for you. It's called Don't Take It Personally, Mrs. Harris, the class teacher. So here's the case. Please take a minute to read it and tell me how would you have reacted to this problem. I will give you a minute on that. Now, if Miss Harris had this problem in the class, I'm sure most of us must have faced a similar situation. Now, answering in this way, it also made her feel in control, and this resulted in an unexpected turning point in her relationship with the child. So make sure whatever technique you use, remember, it's going to have an impact on your child, no matter where your child stands emotionally. Now that building is really important. That connection is very important. So always watch yourself before you deal with any kind of student with any sort of disability. And that is all I have to say to all the teachers out there. Okay, you are welcome. That's it for today on my side. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've picked on an idea or two for your classrooms. Social emotional well-being is to be targeted, and your schools should have an intervention plan, and your curriculum should have a RTI and PBIS based curricula. That is my strong suggestion to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ambreen, very much for a wonderful session. I really learned a lot today. You've presented a lot of information, and I feel like I need to watch the recording, you know, one more time to absorb all the information that you've given us today. It's very rich and very informative. Thank you very much. Miss Haneen here was saying that she feels like the emotional competence comes before academics in some cases. Because of their emotional well-being is suffering, they won't do well academically. These two needs to go hand in hand in education. The stigma around mental health needs to be massively reduced for a better education overall. And I think we all agree with that, don't you think, Ms. Ambreen?
Yes, can I add on to Haneen? That would be like, have you ever had an Oreo and you're trying to brush at the same time, but you're chewing on that Oreo? So it's the same way. You are trying to teach them while you are not addressing the other element of who they actually are. And it just does not apply to small children. It actually applies to everybody, whether your child is in primary, elementary, secondary, high school. It's just the three overlapping aspects. You have to look at the academics, the behavior, and the social emotional well-being of that individual. Let's just consider everybody as an individual, and I wish all the educators out there actually do consider everybody as an individual and not as that particular ABC student. That's the first negative thing that we do. We just name our students that this is low level, above level, needs differentiation. Yes, but how about we stop eating the Oreo and then brush our teeth, you know? So let's focus on one thing at a time and not brush your teeth while eating the Oreo. And that's the best line I've ever read, and I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I really love it. Actually, it sticks to my head right now. It's completely relatable, and I think it's a wonderful example to actually like let us rethink how we see our students in our classrooms. Thank you, Ms. Ambreen, very much.
Thank you,
if there are any further questions from the audience, I'm going to forward it to you because we are running out of time. And moving on now to our next topic, which is discovering learners' skills to promote differentiated classrooms. Now, for that topic, we will start with Mr. Rainer Roberts. So let me introduce Mr. Rainer. Mr. Rainer is a doctoral candidate in instructional design and technology at Liberty University, USA, and currently serves as the managing partner of the academic partnership that advocates for the needs of educational organizations by supporting teachers, students, and leadership. He's also an English lecturer at King Saud bin Abdulaziz University for Health Sciences in Riyadh. Mr. Rainer, welcome, and thank you for being with us today. Are you with us, Mr. Rainer?
Hello.
Hello. Alaikum salam. We are happy to have you today. And just a quick note on what Mr. Rainer would be introducing to us today, it would be the affordances of differentiation. So he will help us explore the best practices of differentiated instruction. More importantly, that his presentation will be looking at differentiation through the lenses of humanity and continuous improvement instead of a sterile list of mandates. Thank you, Mr. Rainer, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I pray that I say the right words today to help myself and help everyone that's listening. I have 25 minutes. I tend to be very long-winded, so I'm going to time myself starting now. Okay, there we go. So first, what I want everyone to do is I want everyone to take a deep breath, because we've heard a lot of information and we had to digest a lot of information. So what I plan on doing is kind of giving you 21 years of teaching and learning experience all throughout the world, and hopefully make this idea of differentiation ring home to educators and to parents and everyone else in leadership. All right, so we heard of a lot of information today, and I think what I will present today will kind of wrap everything up in a package. So let me present my screen. All right, so we took our deep breath. All right, so today I want to talk to you about the affordances of differentiated instruction, teaching up and sideways. Now I'm using the word affordances because this word is extremely important as it relates to teaching and learning. The benefits that come out of teaching and learning should always serve the needs of the learners and also be beneficial to all parties, all stakeholders involved. And that's what I mean by affordances. What we're going to cover today. Today, I want to go over some prerequisites to differentiation. And I want to talk to you about what differentiation is and what it is not. And then we're going to specifically look at differentiated in a special education classroom. All right. Now, I'm going to start this conversation by saying and agreeing with some things that have already been said. No, we are all special needs, all of us, every last one of us. Okay. Now, there's some of us who need more accommodations than others, but all of us need accommodation. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So that's important to keep in mind. So if we can just strip ourselves, and this has already been said, of this label of, or this branding of special needs, every last one of us, everyone that's in an earshot of me, you have a special need and you need accommodations. Now, there are learners who have, again, certain accommodations that must be addressed beyond normal circumstances. And we have to keep that in mind. But even that person has a talent they have strength, they have weaknesses. I want to call your attention to We Bare Bears. All right, my kids are watching this, especially my daughter. She likes We Bare Bears. And I like We Bare Bears because although they're bears, and obviously it's a cartoon, they represent us. And they represent us, the students that we have, learners that we have in the classroom. They also represent our colleagues. Remember, we all are special. We all have special needs. So We Bare Bears, you have Grizz. Grizz, if you don't already know, you have older kids, so you don't have kids. Grizz is the leader of the pack, right? They're all brothers, by the way, even though they're different types of bears, they're all brothers. And this is important because it's going to speak to my presentation. Grizz is the leader of the pack. Grizz is talkative, he's very gregarious. He can talk to anyone. He's very approachable. He's a problem solver. He operates out of love and caring. And but some of Grizz's downfalls is sometimes he can be a little self-centered from time to time. And then you have Pan, the panda bear. They call him Pan. And Pan is very emotional. He is driven by his emotions. Pan is always looking for a soulmate in the show. He operates, but he's very smart. He's extremely intelligent, but he operates out of his emotions. And then we have Ice Bear, the polar bear. Ice Bear is a genius, okay? Ice Bear can do anything. He cooks for the other two brothers. He's almost like the brothers' bodyguards. He protects the brothers. He speaks many different languages. But Ice Bear needs a lot of accommodations. Like, for instance, he's not very social. Also, he has to sleep in the freezer. So they have to, every time they go somewhere, he has to have a freezer, a walk-in freezer that he sleeps in. Obviously, he's a panda bear. And this speaks to the accommodations that we all need as individuals, whether it's in the classroom or outside of the classroom. So differentiation is really about teachers being mindful of the accommodations that students need, okay? I want to draw your attention to two quotes that I really live by as an educator. The first one is by Dr. Diane Lawson-Freeman. She's a big name in the world of language acquisition, University of Michigan. And she says, students do not learn because we teach. That's interesting, isn't it? And there's another really intelligent all-star educator, Dave Willis, and he says, what is taught may not be what is learned. Interesting, very interesting. So if you embrace these two quotes, and if you've been in the classroom for any amount of times, you will know that these two statements are true, whether you want to accept them or not. Students do not learn because you teach. And number two, what is taught may not be what is learned. Okay, I want you to think about that as we proceed. So as educators, what we need to do is think about three essential elements as it relates to differentiation. The first one is content. Okay, and I want you to look at these elements through the lens of students' wants, needs, and expectations. All right, think about that. I want you to think about that in your head. Keep that in your head. Wants, needs, and expectations. As an educator, remember, we're all special needs. As an educator, we want to think about students' wants, needs, and expectations. Wants, needs, and expectations. Wants, needs, and expectations. As it relates to content, what does a student want, need, and expect as it relates to content? Process, what do students want, need, and expect as it relates to how we're going to go about learning what we're learning? And product, what are the students' want, needs, and expectation as it relates to how the students can demonstrate that they learned. Okay, remember, students do not learn because we teach, and what is taught, what was learned, or what is taught may not be necessarily what was learned. Okay, content, process, and product. Now, if we deal with students' want, needs, and expectations, then that means our role as the differentiated teacher becomes more than the teacher. In fact, I challenge you, we're going to do two things. I challenge you to remove the word special needs out of your vocabulary. And I challenge you to remove the word teacher out of your vocabulary. Instead of teacher, call yourself, once you consider calling yourself a social scientist. Okay. And if you're a social scientist, that means you need to be nosy so you can advocate for your students' wants, needs, and expectations. If you're a social scientist, that means you're going to be a co-learner, because that's what social scientists do. So you're a co-learner, you're a coach, you're a mentor, you're a collaborator, you're a facilitator. It's extremely important to understand the differentiated classroom is student-centered. So the teacher, the social scientist, has to be a student, has to be a co-learner, so he can advocate for the students' wants, needs, and expectations. All right. Now, we're going to talk about how or what does it take for students to learn. Number one, students must feel safe. And we're going to talk about the brain in a second. If students do not feel safe, then students will not learn anything. Okay. Are you addressing the students' wants, needs, and expectations? All right. Outside of content, process, and product. And is the teacher providing context? And what is context? Context is the situation students understand. Now I got 14 minutes left. Okay. And at 2 minutes, I'm going to give you the secret of teaching. So stick with me. Context. So if you can do these three things, if you can make students feel safe in your classroom, if you can deal with their wants, needs, and expectations, and if you can teach in context, you're moving towards differentiation. Now, I'm going to quickly talk about how we learn very quickly. When we learn information, whether you have special needs or not, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a human being, you learn this way. We have this thing, this amazing thing that God gave us called the brain. And in our brain, there's something called the reticular activating system. And what the reticular activating system is designed to do is make sure that the information that the inputs that you're receiving are safe. To make sure the inputs you're receiving are safe. And if those inputs, can somebody mute their mic, please? If those inputs are not safe, then the information goes to the non-thinking part of the brain, which is in the rear. And three things happen: fight, flight, or freeze. Now, I'm going to say this. Please, someone please mute their mic. I'm going to say this. Some students that we have been labeled special needs don't really have a problem. They really don't have a special need. They're just normal, just like everyone else. What has happened is they have had a series of very bad teachers. Let's be real. There's a lot of very bad teachers out there that cause students to look like they have special needs when they don't, because the information, the inputs the students are receiving, the RES doesn't like. So the students begin to fight, get up, run around in the class, freeze, get on their cell phone, fall asleep, or flights. I got to go to the bathroom. I got to go to the bathroom. I need to call my mother. Okay. So what I always tell schools and educators is, please do not diagnose students if you are not a trained professional. If you're not a trained professional, do not label a student with ADHD or you think that's none of your business. Stay in your lane as an educator. Your educator is to champion every student that you're assigned to cause. Please do not go about the business of trying to be a psychologist and psychoanalyze students and diagnose students, because you probably, and trust me, you will be doing more harm than good. Now, if the teacher can satisfy that RES and make sure that information is safe, then information goes to what is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is concerned with one thing: what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Teacher, why do we have to learn this? I don't need to learn English. I'm not leaving Saudi Arabia ever. I'm okay with my Arabic. Why do I need to learn this, teacher? If you cannot, and this goes for the special ed student or whoever, anyone, even adults at work, if it doesn't pertain to me, if there's no value for me, guess what? Guess where it goes? The non-thinking part of the brain. Fight, flight, or freeze. So again, sometimes we think students have an issue when it's our bad teaching that's the issue. And I'm just keeping it real today. All right. Now, if you can satisfy the amygdala, then you can do some other things to help the information get to the frontal lobe, and that's where long-term memory is stored. So it is key that as educators, we use what Krashen called I+1. I+1 equals growth. I is prior knowledge. If you're not tapping into a student's prior knowledge, game over, because there's a huge possibility the RES is not going to like it or the amygdala is not going to like it. When we instruct students, we start with what the student knows. That goes back to the context, teaching in context, the situation the student understands, the situation the students understand, the students' want, needs, and expectations. Once you deal with that, then you give one chunk of information beyond. And that's how we grow up. I mean, that's how we develop up. Okay. Differentiation is about teaching up. Okay. Start with the student already knows, start with teaching context, and then give bits of information up. This is the one way that we scaffold, or that's how we scaffold, right? So in a differentiated classroom, scaffolding is extremely important. And we scaffold through the I+1 method. Remember, and I see this a lot with teachers, trying to throw too much information at students. Okay. How do you eat an elephant? How do we eat an elephant? We eat an elephant one bite at a time. One bite at a time is how we eat an elephant. So keep that in mind. That means as teachers, you have to stay in your lane. Don't go about the business of trying to psychoanalyze students and figure out what they are. There's something called referrals. Make referrals. If your school doesn't have processes for referrals, then you might want to get to another school because they're not serving the needs of students. Also understand that learning takes place explicitly and implicitly. So learning is just not students declaring facts or what we call semantic knowledge or episodic knowledge experiences. Learning is very much implicit. And sometimes a learner's strength is in their implicit knowledge. Now, one thing I want to say about this, regardless of what a learner's strength is, we need to play towards the learner's strengths to enhance their weaknesses. We don't ignore weaknesses. In fact, our job is to enhance weaknesses. All right. And remember, the overall target for you as an educator is learning transfer. Learning transfer. So students can take the knowledge, the prior knowledge that they already have, and use it and apply it in other ways and connect it with other things that they may learn in and outside the classroom. Remember, learning does not only take place in your class, it takes place 24 hours a day, whether they're in a school or not. We're always learning. So learning transfer is extremely important so we can create lifelong learners. All right. That also means that we have to get out of textbook teaching. You have to change, you have to teach in many modalities, many different modalities. We have to keep in mind when we're teaching if in a differentiated classroom, we're teaching with a growth mindset in mind, not a fixed mindset. We're teaching with a growth mindset. We're making sure that students always have the possibility that they can reach their highest level. They can reach the level beyond what they can imagine. This is what we do as teachers, perceive them to be, because whatever we perceive can actually be a hindrance to the student's development. So we always keep a growth mindset. Let's talk about what differentiation is not. Differentiation is not individualized instruction. It is not coming up with 20 different lesson plans for every student in the class. No, that's not what differentiation is. Differentiation is not chaotic, even though it's flexible, even though in the differentiated class, it may look chaotic. As a former principal of schools, I would always be a little scared when a teacher's classroom was too quiet. All right. I like it when I hear noise coming out of a classroom, especially when the noise is coming from the students. Okay. So differentiation is not chaotic. However, it's organized, very well organized. Differentiated is not a way to provide homogeneous groupings. Okay. Differentiation is not about having students not do, if you have a lesson plan, you're saying, well, this student has a has a special need, so we won't give him these questions. No, you're going to give him the same work, or her the same work you would give everyone else. You're just going to do it a different way. Okay. And differentiation is not just for the outliers. Okay. It's not just for gifted and talented. It's not just for special needs. It's for everyone. What is differentiation? Differentiation is proactive. Differentiation is rooted in assessment. You have to, in a differentiated classroom, you have to continuously be doing formative assessments. You have to have well-structured, well-thought-out summative assessments. Differentiation is about content, process, and product. Differentiation is student-centered. Differentiation is about developing agency in the student, regardless of what you think their abilities are. It's about developing agency so they become self-determined, self-regulated, so they can experience self-efficacy. Okay. Things to remember. This is things that we need to remember in a differentiated classroom. Keep in mind the learner's IEP. If in fact that student is special needs, that means they have an individual education plan, and you need to follow that plan to a T. If they don't have an individual education plan, then you need to start there, because that's where we're going to get the accommodations from, or know what accommodations are needed. You need to know the students' want, needs, and expectations. You need to be nosy. You need to know your students. Learn them. Not psychoanalyze them, but know them. Know what their favorite color is. Know what they want to be in life. Know what their favorite cartoon is. If you don't know your student's favorite television show, you're wrong, because you need to use that information to build your lessons, teaching context. Differentiation is a commitment, not a strategy. It's something that you're committed to, and it doesn't turn on and off. It is perpetual. Differentiation is like playing a musical instrument. Music, you could play a song in different notes and different tunes, different keys, different genres. You can play the same song, and that's what differentiation is. Don't forget the scope and don't forget the scope and sequence. And differentiation is about planning, and more planning. All right, I know I'm running close on time, short on time. Remember, differentiation is about teaching up, meaning just because a student has special needs does not mean that they get less than everyone else. You want to, even though they're here, you want to get them to the goal. You're just going to get them to the goal a different way. They get the same goal. You don't lower the standard for a student who was quote unquote special need. He doesn't get a lower standard. He has the same standard as everyone else, because when they go out in society, they're going to have that same standard in society. No one is going to say special needs when they're 32 years old, when they're 47 years old. No one's going to say special needs. So we need to condition them now to be at the same goal. Now, the way we get them there is going to be differently. It's going to be different. I'm running over my time now. The way we get them there is going to be a little different, but they get the same, they have the same goal as everyone else. Yes, they have the same goal as the gifted and talented student. All right, I'm going to skip that because we have times. I'm short on my time. 3 things that we need to consider, 3 basic considerations. What are the students' deficits? What are the students' strengths? And what are the expected outcomes? What are the expected outcomes? And it needs to be shared with the student. You need to ask your student, what do they expect? At the beginning of a unit, ask them, what do they expect to learn? If you don't want them, if you want to manage the classroom, the last speaker was talking about classroom management. If you want to manage the classroom, make sure that they're going to be interested in what they're learning. Trust me, if they're interested in what they're learning, you're going to have less classroom management issues. Another point to that is, and for classroom management, make sure that you are teaching in different modalities and you have the other students be on your side. Group work, differentiation is about the whole group, groupings, so the whole class, groups, and individuals. So a part of that classroom is making sure all the students in the classroom are community members and they live in this democracy and they hold each other accountable. Because when you create that type of classroom where the students are holding each other accountable, you're going to have less classroom management issues, and you won't find yourself in awkward positions trying to figure out how to calm a student down, because guess what? Students, their friends can calm them down way better than you can ever calm them down. They can teach them better than you could ever teach them because they're the same age. That's what the research says. They're the same age. Those students will listen to their peers way before they will listen to you. So make sure the outcomes are shared. Understand what the objectives are. What are your objectives? What do you plan on doing? Where do you need the student to be? Do you know that? Are you comfortable with that? Going back to the plan. All right, I told you I was going to teach you, share with you, because my time is up. The secret of teaching. Here's the secret of teaching. Good meat makes its own gravy. That's the secret of teaching. If you become the best educator, the best social scientist you can be by having a commitment to knowing your students, having a commitment to making sure you know you are aware and you practice the methods, different methodologies, or you consider methodologies, right? So you can consider many methods. Prabhu said there's no best method. There's no best way of teaching. Why? Dr. Camara DeVello says the 3 Ps: particularity, practicality, possibility. Particularity says you have particular students in your class, individual students in your class. Possibilities means you have to be brave. Practicality means you must use the best method at that time. Whether it's scaffolding, whether it's blended learning, there's no best method. Don't ever have anyone tell you that there's a best method. So the differentiated classroom teacher is the teacher who, number one, realizes that he does not know it all. Whether they have 1 year experience or 100 years experience. I'm doing this for 22 years and I'm still figuring things out. So the differentiated teacher is a teacher committed to teaching and learning excellence, because good meat makes its own gravy. If you plan well, if you care about your students, if you want to learn about them, and you know many different methodologies, many different modalities, all that other stuff works itself, everything works itself out. Because guess what? Students don't learn because we teach. And what they learn may not necessarily be what is taught. That is my time. I'm sorry for going over. You can put any questions in the chat box and I can field them later. If you want to continue this conversation with me, you can take a picture of this really quick. And this is how I can be contacted. I love talking about this stuff. So please do not hesitate to message me. And I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rayner. It was amazing. And actually, everything you said, it's totally relatable. And when you mentioned like the 3 bears and the example that you've mentioned there, it makes sense, because each one of us has their own skills and they have their own points of strengths and weaknesses, and it's like at the end we all have our own special needs in a way or another. Thank you very much for your valuable time. And now we are moving on to another great presenter and speaker with us, Miss Rana Khan. Miss Rana, are you with us? Hello.
Yes, Mrs. Rao, thank you so much for inviting me to speak on this topic.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much. And we are pleased to have you. So let me introduce you to Miss Rana. Miss Rana holds a master's degree in English Literature and Business Administration, besides teaching certificate in CELTA. She is also working as an academic coordinator to intensive English program at Algonquin College in Kuwait. Ms. Rana also has served as the chair, Conferences Professional Council at TESOL International Association, and she is currently the president of the TEFL Kuwait. So welcome, Ms. Rana, and we are excited to have you and know more about your session, which will be highlighting the significance of universal design learning that supports building support systems, not only for students with disabilities, but also to regular students. Thank you, Ms. Rana, and welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Ra. Can I share my screen now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, just a minute. So we have slides start. So I am, as Mrs. Ra introduced me, I am from Kuwait. Welcome from Kuwait. I am I'm an academic coordinator with the intensive English program here at Algonquin College. And I'm also the president of TEFL Kuwait, which is an English Language Teachers Association. We just founded this year. And so we have been trying to work with language teachers in our region. And it's an honor and pleasure to be able to talk on this amazing topic. So let me first give you an overview of my presentation. First, I will focus on the need to harness student potential, why it's important to utilize the student potential to its fullest best. And then I will walk you through the definition of universal design learning, what is UDL, and I will also focus on asset-based teaching. And I will talk about how UDL is a support system, not only for special needs students, but it is good for all students. We will also talk about the significance of UDL for teachers as well as students, and the importance of familial and cultural background in supporting student learning. I will conclude with some basic recommendations. So just to brief you about our context, for example, the students in the foundation program at Algonquin College, when they come to us, they're basically very poor in language skills. But that doesn't mean that they're entirely lacking in any kind of smartness or knowledge based on which is focused on their learning. They're just weak in language. So they do have other skills. And this could be because they have never been allowed to choose their space and develop their skills, and have always been dictated when it comes to language learning. So there could be various reasons which forces them to become a little bit disengaged and bored with language learning. So the need is that as educators, we have to recognize the differences in their learning and styles, and need to understand that if a student is weak in language, it doesn't mean is weak in other things as well, or in other skills or other learning styles. So we need to offer them varied choices and adapt our teaching styles to engage these disinterested learners. If we offer them good choices, from my experience, I've seen they always respond well. So the need is to introduce those varied forms of expression, varied forms of learning styles to engage those learners who could be very diverse. And as we have seen in the different sessions, we should not be judgmental about these learning styles. We need to explore and learn about these learners first. So what is universal design learning? Well, if we look at the definition, universal design for learning is basically a framework that is based on a scientific concept that talks about an understanding of how people learn. The goal of UDL is to design a barrier-free, instructionally rich learning environments and lessons that provide access to all students, not just special needs students, but all students. So it is meant for all kinds of students, students with diverse learning styles. So universal design learning is basically an asset-based teaching system, which believes that we need to focus not only on strengths, but also deficits of students, because those deficits can show us the way how to employ those deficits into making turning these deficits into strengths. So universal design for learning is an approach that conceptualizes and believes in planning instruction that addresses all aspects of a student's or learner's variability. And if they're different, that doesn't mean they are lacking in something, but they are different. That means we can employ those differences to their to build their learning. Learner differences are not seen as deficits, but rather as an expected part of students' diversity. And we all know we have mixed abilities, we have diverse learning styles. So when we plan for all students' variable, diverse learning needs, we meet their needs and the needs of other students too. We have seen that whenever we plan something, especially for certain people or for certain students, it is beneficial for all students. We have many examples from the world, not only in the field of education, actually. So UDL is basically a support system for all students, as I mentioned in my previous slide. It's not just for special needs students or special people with diverse learning styles. The word universal is normally misinterpreted or not understood properly, because people think universal means the same. But in this case, universal design learning concept believes in using varied methods and strategies to remove those barriers that exist in a classroom. It aims at providing equal opportunities to all students. So equal opportunity. So basically, it believes in equity and inclusion. Everybody is included. Everybody. So when a teacher plans a lesson, she considers that she has to allow means of engagement. She has to allow means of expression, varied means of expression. It aims at strengthening every student's needs and strengths. It benefits not only students who need special attention, but also students who are regular. So it is a total support building system. It is especially helpful to English language learners because the language learners need these kinds of expression. Using different kinds of multimedia or maybe using technology. Some students are logical, some students are, they like kinesthetic styles, some students are linguistic. So, you know, we have different kinds of learners in our classes. So let us look at the importance of UDL for teachers as well as students first. Now, there are 3 key strategies of learning in UDL as we look at the first is the effective networks, which aim at providing multiple options of engagement, or the why of learning. So when we are presenting our content or material or whatever we are teaching them, we need to offer varied forms of engagement so that the students feel motivated and engaged to learn. So the content needs to be presented in different ways. The second is recognition networks that aims at providing multiple options of a representation, or the what of learning, how the content is presented, what is presented, in which form it is presented. And then the third one is the strategic networks that aims at providing multiple options of action and expression, or how the students express the learning. Now, whatever we are presenting to them, however engaging it is, are the students getting it? And are they able to express whatever they're learning? So this is the how of learning, providing them varied means of expression, which could involve technology, using multimedia, using say, for example, discussion boards, I have utilized different kinds of expression in my classes, and it has always proved beneficial for my students. Recently, especially during the pandemic, I forced myself to change topics of discussion to general discussions, more relevant discussions, and I've seen students have been able to produce better they have produced better content in expression. Now, let us look at each one of them in a slight detailed way. So the key question to ask are, if we look at the why of learning, or when we are talking about effective networks, we need to ask ourselves the questions: does the lesson provide options that can help all learners? Does the content that we're providing regulate their own learning? Does it sustain effort and motivation? Does it engage and interest all learners? And it's not only focused towards certain kind of learners. So basically, it aims at looking at the lesson, whether the students are engaging in the lesson, not only special needs students, but all the students. The second one is the what of learning, which basically thinks about how the information is presented to the learners. So in what way are we presenting content to learners? is the information provided provides them with options that helps them learn, not just special needs, but also regular students? Does it reach higher levels of comprehension and understanding? Do they understand whatever they're learning? Do they understand the symbols and expressions that we are using? Because some students have, some students are linguistic, some students are, they are visual. So those who are visual, they will grasp the symbols and expressions, but some of them who are not might have some difficulty. Do they perceive what they needs to be learned? Can they understand its utility to them? Why are they learning that? So when we talk about the what of learning, what they're learning and how it is presented to them, it encompasses all these questions. So we need to ask ourselves whether we are covering all these aspects of learning in the what of learning. Then the next key question to ask is the how of learning, or when we think about how learners are expected to act strategically and express themselves, to assess what they're learning. Now, when we talk about assessments, we normally focus on summative assessments. So we need to have a certain change in our assessment styles. We need to focus more on formative assessments, which allow better expression of learning to students. So we need to think on, we need to ask these questions to ourselves. Does the activity provide options to students that helps all learners? Are they able to act strategically in expression when they are expressing their learning? Are they able to express themselves fluently? Are they physically responding as well? So we need to ask all these questions when we look at how students are able to express their learning. So we need to give a free rein to their styles of expression and not restrict them in the ways in which we are used to assessing their knowledge. We need to be more flexible in allowing them freedom of expression in whatever they're learning with us. We would be lagging behind if we do not focus on the importance of familial and language and cultural background when we want to look at UDL, because it is extremely important when we talk about building support systems. Importance of families, culture, language, they are so crucial in building backgrounds. Because students, when they come to us with a background knowledge. So we need to consider that and keep this in mind, that these students have something special. You just need to dig deeper and explore that. So it's very important to pay attention to students' familial and cultural identities, because sometimes we have students, now, especially in the Middle East, it's not the case, but still, we do have some students who come from different backgrounds, who might be Arabs, but maybe not from the same country, or who might be Asians, who might be coming from different cultures, So the roles of cultural biases that prevent students from coming out needs to be explored. So we need to see if the students are not coming up fully with their identities, are they hiding, trying to hide something? So we need to make them feel more comfortable with their culture. We need to make them understand that it's all right to be different. It's all right to be in a different setting. So we need to make them understand that each culture is important, and we should make them understand that if they compare cultures, each one carries some good things and good aspects about them. And if we do not focus on this, it will prevent us as educators from further supporting students with disabilities. So we need to focus a lot on building familial and cultural support systems in our classes. As educators, we can be vigilant to students who come from different cultural backgrounds, different linguistic backgrounds, or from different other backgrounds. So we need to support them in whichever way and whatever way we can as educators. When we talk about support systems that are based on familial, cultural, or linguistic background, it would not be, it would be, we also need to consider the importance of multidisciplinary teams in building student strengths. Now I am a language educator, but I also teach business at times, and I do come across students who struggle with a lot of disabilities once they move into the diploma programs. So the importance, I think, needs to be given to develop a multidisciplinary team that can discuss the student deficits as well as strengths. So the students who have passed from me as a language educator, when I teach them in business, I do realize that sometimes there are common themes that I need to discuss with other instructors. So we need to support each other as educators from different streams, need to talk about student strengths and deficits, need to spend some extra time on assessing special needs students, especially if there are diverse students not only diverse, but also with special needs. We need to discuss assets of the shared and common students as educators. We need to think about the needs, the students' needs, in terms of planning content. So we need to sit together and consider how we can help each other in building those support systems for our students. Because sometimes we share the same set of students, and we can help each other in deciding those and building on those assets as well as those deficits. This will allow the students to perform and excel as the fully able students, or as the regular students can perform. But we need to train our teachers. Many times we see that the teachers are not properly trained and they lack the necessary skills to do this. And we also need the support from administration and management who are not always complying, or who are not always very supportive in handling such cases or special need or diverse students in our classes. Just to conclude, I don't know how much time I have. Yeah. Just to conclude, I would just say that we need to open horizons for students who might like to think outside the box. We need to consider those diverse learners and their diverse learning styles. We need to approach the subject of language teaching from a very different perspective. We need to think that if the student is weak in language, doesn't mean the student is weak in everything. They might be very smart, very creative, very innovative. So we need to consider that. We need to present the content to them through multimedia so as to cater to different kinds of learners in our classes. We have to be sensitive to our learners with disabilities or who are gifted students. We need to handle these learners with extreme patience and kindness, because I know we are all, after all, we are human beings. We also tend to run out with patience, but still we have a responsibility. We need to consider this. Good planning and strategy development can definitely help any student to perform and excel in their preferred styles of expression. So we need to be very organized. Students are more engaged and productive when they are offered need-satisfying academic activities. You have to make them understand the importance of learning in their lives. We have to explain the relevance of the learning in their lives, what it aims, how it helps them in real world or in real life learning. We need to connect and develop increased competence, make choices, and enjoy themselves. We need to help them connect and develop increased competence, make choices, enjoy themselves in a safe. So we need to create that safe and secure environment in classes. So when we see that students are able to satisfy their needs, why they're learning, what they're learning, they understand everything, they can immerse themselves in producing really and facing academic challenges the way we present to them. They will behave appropriately and perform better, definitely. And we have to consider this, that we cannot resist cultural influence or familial influence of students' backgrounds. So it might further impair their learning curves. So we need to be very, very vigilant to that. We need to very carefully explore this and utilize it to maximize the student potential in our classes, because it is definitely going to add to the motivation and engagement in their learning. And thank you so much. I don't know if I can take some questions, but if this is some of the, these are some of the references that I've used for creating these slides. And this is my email. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly, or you can send them to me on my email. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rana. It was wonderful, and we really enjoyed having you today. If you would like, you can share those references links with us, and we can share them with our audience at the end of the session in the chat pod. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to our third part of and last part of our webinar today. Okay, sorry about that. So today we are having the third part with Miss Nabiha Taher, who will be joining us today and discussing with us the importance of parental involvement with students with mixed abilities learning needs. And let me introduce her to you first. Miss Nabiha holds an MA in philosophy, and she also holds a CELTA. She has been in the education field for more than 7 years, and she is one of the lead trainers at Teachogen that we are proud to have, and one of our instructional designers as well. So welcome, Ms. Nabiha.
Thank you, Mrs. Ra, for your kind introduction, and hello, and thank you for inviting me for this wonderful webinar. Hello to all attendees, and it was very interesting to hear my fellow presenters who gave a very insightful, sorry, just I want to share my screen, yes, who gave a very insightful information on very important aspects. Relating to these aspects, I will be talking about a much needed approach in a child's learning journey, and that is influence of parental involvement on learner's development. I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ra. So basically, in this topic, I will be addressing specifically for students with learning difficulties. Now, I will be starting my presentation with this quote, which is from Jane Dehoff. She was an American educator and politician. So according to her, at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents. Now, with this code, I would like to relate to one of my childhood school days incident, which relates a lot to this topic. That I still remember that I was in grade 1 and I had to do a performance from my school, as a whole class. I was part of my class performance, and I was on the stage, and I still remember that I can see all my classmates chanting and pointing out that I can see my mom, I can see my father, I can see my parents. And I still remember that I was looking around on the stage. I stopped performing and I was frozen, and I was still, and I was looking around for my parents because I was so overwhelmed and stressed with the feeling that, are my parents there to see how well I perform? Are they there to see how good I am at stage? On stage. So this is something which is very, very relatable for each one of us, for every one of us, that we want our parents to see how well we perform. We want them to be involved, because undoubtedly parents' engagement in a child's learning and development is very, very crucial, because this involvement helps the children to enhance their well-being, their confidence, and you can see a noticeable difference in their academic progression, irrespective of what the financial status or the background of the parents or the family is. So this is something which I can truly relate to myself, and I think so we all can relate to ourselves. This research design, which I recently read a research article from one of a very renowned research educator. This person is from Indonesia, and they did the research, which is a research paper called Influence of Parent Involvement in Children with Special Needs, Motivational and Learning Difficulties. Now, I agree to what Mr. Rayner said, that we all are special needs in one way or the other, because saying that we are special need is not something that you should feel bad about, because we all lack in one way or the other. We all are not perfect. We learn so many things. Similarly, as we all are special needs, and like each one of us needs to be addressed. Some of us need more attention. So similarly, parents need to give more attention to their child who needs more, involvement, who needs more attention from the parents. So parents' involvement, basically, according to this research, they say is an independent variable, and the achievement, the motivation, and the outcome, the participation, or overcoming the social anxiety and hesitation from the child or the student is a dependent variable. But this totally depends on the parent's involvement and engagement. Now, when we say parents' involvement or engagement, what do we actually mean by that? Because students who come across complications or hesitations or reluctance in understanding can only become successful if their parents are consistent in discussing their school activities or their problems, or what is the fear, or why are they scared of talking to people, learning, or even addressing the issues. So listening, I would say to all, everyone, that you should listen to your child. Listening is the key, which helps you to understand what is the problem, why your child is lacking. Because sometimes it's a very common thing that we quickly designate a child having learning disorder. There's a very like a slight difference between learning difficulty and disorder, because sometimes a child doesn't have a disorder, but a child is hesitant or reluctant. Why? Because they have a fear, they have a social anxiety problem, that if they are not understanding a concept in the class, they do not raise their hand, or they do not tell their teacher, even they do not talk to their parents. So parents need to sit with their child in a very friendly manner. They need to understand, listen, discuss their school activities, this develops more strong relationship. This gives child the confidence to share with their parents what problems they are facing, what have they achieved, what are they learning, what new things they learn every day at school. And this helps the child to attend the school regularly, because if the child is not happy, or if the child is scared or having a fear of learning, definitely the child would not be able to attend the school regularly. They will go low in grades. So parents' involvement is something which helps you to understand the factors that influences the learning achievement of the children, so that if the children or the child is facing any problem, and if the parents are able to diagnose that problem, they can definitely actively involve in finding the source of the problem, so that they can support their child to achieve the best. Now, generally, we all are familiar that cognitive, social, motor, and language skills are the key factors that contribute to the quality of life for being successful for everyone. But development of these skills for children which have moderate or severe learning difficulties have more complex needs, which is undoubtedly, it is very challenging for the parents, but it is something which is not impossible to be solved, which is something we do not have a solution that, yes, we do have a solution. The child is more comfortable with a parent rather than a teacher or a friend or anyone. So parents need to sit and listen and understand that why their child is having a problem, what is needed by my child, how should I address the problem. Now here, this is a collaborative thing which parents and teachers need to sit together and motivate their child, motivate the student, because motivation is a dynamic process. And it produces the goal-oriented behavior, because if you do not motivate your child, if you do not encourage the child, even if the child is making a mistake, it's not that you discourage the child or you snub the child. You have to show the optimistic side of that mistake, that it's okay if you're doing it now, it's all right, you won't do it again, or try not to do it again. The main factor which I believe because why the child is having learning difficulty is because sometimes the parents, they compare their child with other children. This comparison, believe me, and I'm sure that you all must agree with me, that this comparison is the killer of child's motivation and learning process. Because the child stops looking at their own abilities. The child stops looking at what he or she can do the best. They are more focused on what the other person is doing, how the other person is better than me. And this makes the child terribly upset, overwhelmed, discouraged. They feel low, they feel that they are good for nothing. So comparison is something which kills the motivation of the child. So parents need to always show a positive side to their child. They should always help them. If they are lacking in something, they should sit, they should help the child, they should talk to the teachers, they should have a collaborative solution to this, that how they have to help their child overcome this barrier. Now, there's a lot of factors which contribute in influencing the learning difficulties or overcoming these difficulties of the child. Individual, parent, and family factors. Parents believe about what do parents believe about parents involved? Because some of the parents, I'm not being very aggressive, or I'm not being very pessimistic in saying this, because some of the parents truly believe that this is the school or teacher's responsibility to motivate the child, or to give the child should achieve the best result, because this is the responsibility of the school and the teachers. No, parents' involvement is the big factor in the student's achievement. Some of the parents have this belief, I'm sorry to say that, but perceptions of invitations for parents' involvement, that if teachers invite the parents to be involved in their child's activity, some of them are not ready, or they are not willing to engage or to involve in that. Their current life context, maybe they are too busy, or they have many commitments. Like sometimes parents do have a lot of commitments, because of which they are not able to participate. Their class, their ethnicity, and gender is also a family factor. Now, what are the child factors which can influence their learning problems? Is the age, learning difficulties. The child can be gifted. It's not that the child is having learning difficulty, then they have no ability. No. They might have ability in some other factors. They might have ability in some other things. They might have talent in many other, like the child is not good in science, math, and English. It's okay. The child might be good in arts. The child might be good in other technical abilities. Also, the behavioral problems, because when the children or the child is not able to understand something, and they're not able to communicate, they're not able to focus, or they know that the teacher or the parent is not understanding what they need or what is their requirement, that is when they have the behavioral problems. And the third factor is the parent-teacher factor. differing goals and agendas. Sometimes parents have different goals and teachers have a different goals, different attitudes. Sometimes the parents are not ready to involve. Sometimes the teachers are not ready to involve parents in. Differing language use, because language barrier is also one of the important factors, which I will be discussing later in another slide. Societal factors are historical and demographic factors are also very important, economical, family background. So these factors are very important, and they do influence the child's learning difficulties and problems. Now, as I mentioned, that every child doesn't have a learning disorder. They can have a learning difficulty as well. So what is that learning difficulty? The child can be having attention deficit disorder. Okay, this is a disorder, but it is not a very a strong disorder like we have children with many other syndromes. So this is like the working memory and auditory processing disorder, where the child cannot focus, and the child might not be able to, even if they focus, they're not able to remember. Their memory is not that strong enough. So this is where parents have to support the child. They have to involve, they have to help the child by involving in different activities, keeping the home environment. Because of the pandemic situation now, it is more, approximately 1.58 billion children in more than 180 countries are affected. So the importance of parental participation in the child's learning has dramatically increased. So involvement, participation, and engagement are not only the adequate parameters, especially for the learning deficit students. So creating an environment at home that encourages learning, and you should also communicate achievable goals to your child. They shouldn't be something which are very high and the student gets overwhelmed with the feeling that how I'm going to achieve it. Supporting the child to take decision. So this is also very important. You should help the child to take decision on their own rather than, imposing or being authoritative are highly important factors, because the more comprehensive and well-planned the partnership between a student and the parent is, the higher the student achievement is. Because this topic is so broad that I was out of research that what should I include and what I shouldn't include. So process of family involvement and young children's outcome. This is a chart that I found, and I thought that this is something very informative that I should be sharing with all of you, that parent-child relationship and participation in child-centered activities. So parents should actively participate in a child's various activities, even if a child is drawing a simple circle. You should be encouraging the child, you should be motivating the child. Home-school relationship, communication and participation, which is very, very important between a teacher and a parent. And responsibility for learning art, reading in the home. You should create an environment at home which encourages learning process, which encourages the child to crave more for learning different things. Parent-child conversation, again, discussion and listening is the key. You should listen to your child, which is very, very important. And out of all of these factors, if they work together, what is the outcome? The child develops cognitive development, communication skills, social competence. The social anxiety is the biggest problem which many children face. So they overcome that and they become competent. Literacy development, vocabulary growth, expressive language, comprehension. They tend to they learn, and they are more encouraged to read, and they develop their comprehension skills. Positive engagement with peers, adults, and learning. They gradually overcome from their anxieties, from their hesitations, from their reluctance. Now, there's another very important thing which I would like to say, that parents' involvement not only means involvement of one of the partners, like either a mother or a father, irrespective of some unavoidable reasons where either of the parent is available. So it is a collaborative effort of both the parent, which is required by the child. It's not only that the mother is getting involved, it's not only the father is getting involved, because sometimes a mother have a different ability or capability set. A father has a different capability or ability set. A mother might be understanding a few things. A father might be understanding more factors, more things needed by the child, or a mother can understand more things and father can understand few things. So this is something which is, because a child if sees that only my mother is involved and my father is not interested, so this is also something which is which doesn't help the child to learn. This is also something which makes a child feel very discouraged and feel very low that my father is not interested in what I'm learning. So this is something which should be considered by parents, that it is a mutual collaboration in the child's learning process. Now, there are many reasons for no parental engagement in school. This is something which I would really like to address, and I would really like the schools, institutes, and educationists to address this issue, because sometimes parents do want to engage, sometimes parents do want to involve, but there are certain factors because of which they are not able to involve, which is the time constraint. Maybe parents cannot volunteer at their child's school, or they may not take time off work because they might have very important commitment, or they might not be able to visit their child for a certain event. So time constraint can be a problem. Now, language barrier is a very important factor, because for many immigrant parents, language is a big hurdle that keeps them from getting involved in their child's school. Because 18 out of 52 schools that offer language translation services to those who communicate to parents in multiple languages saw an increased involvement for parents in school. But for those parents who have a language barrier, who are not able to communicate, let's say, for example, because I was working in Saudi Arabia for a lot of years. So there, when I was teaching in different schools and at universities, the parents have the parents, especially the Arab parents who are not able to actively communicate in English language. So that is when they are very reluctant in involving or in participating or communicating with the teacher. Also lack of knowledge, because sometimes some parents are not too much informed, or in many parts of the world, there are parents who are either not aware of what is a parent-teacher meeting, or they are not aware of many subjects what their child is studying at school. So 55% of those surveys did not clearly understand the role and importance of PTA in their school. So this is according to a survey that 55% from that consensus, the parents did not understand that why do they have to attend the parent-teacher meeting? Why do they have to involve in their child's event or any kind of activity? 75% of the parents were either not aware of PTA meetings, or they were not even ready to attend the parent-teacher meeting or any kind of event or activity of the school. Inconvenience, because 75% of the parents expressed challenges in managing the logistics of involvement, complaining about inconvenience of remembering now multiple logins, using different tools and websites. Now, this is something which is also one of the important factors, because now, because of the pandemic situation, everything is virtual. Schools and institutes, and we all are using digital tools. Now, not all parents are aware of the digital tools. They are not aware how to use a laptop properly. They're not aware how to use things on the mobile, how to use the application and software on the mobile. Similarly, they're not that much strong enough to remember the login. So this is also one of a very important hurdle which prevents the parents from involvement. A lack of motivation. Many parents lack the motivation to get involved in their child's school because they did not feel appreciated or were not recognized for their time and effort. So teacher and parents, they should equally appreciate and motivate each other so that they can help the child to involve in so that they can help the child to overcome the learning difficulties. And this is something which is, again, one of the very, very important factors. So this is another thing which I read, and I would like to share, that there's a difference between parental involvement and engagement, because parental involvement is a general term that describes parents' participation in their children's education. But engagement is a very active, that you actually participate and involve in the child's activity, in the child's project, or any kind of school activity, social activity. So parent involvement, which is not as active as the parental engagement, because that is more meaningful and more active. Parents may be involved in education merely because they were instructed by the educational establishment. So it's not because they themselves wanted to, because they were instructed or they were pushed or forced by the school. So that is when they started involving. And parental engagement indicates a greater commitment from the parent side. So this was what I wanted to share with all of you. I hope you all had learned something from my presentation, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Nabiha. Thank you very much. It's a very important topic, and to be honest, we really, really want to know more about, but unfortunately we're running out of time. And I think that, like all of the presenters today,
because this is a vast topic.
Yes, and they have wonderful topics that we actually would wish we had more time. Like we can have like a separate webinar for each one of you, to be honest, so we can actually have like
Mrs. Ra?
Yeah.
There's one more thing, if I can add, because there's one very important factor, because we all are educationists, we're teachers, so we need to be very open up and to understand that as students have learning difficulties, teachers also have some teaching difficulties. So as I agree again with Mr. Rana, that yes, teachers sometimes do have difficulties, and because of that, they tend to not understand that they might not be delivering as accurate as things need to be delivered. So we need to be open up to understand some lackings in us as a teacher as well. So this is again a mutual thing. As teachers, we need to understand our difficulties or problems we are facing as teachers, so that we can fully address the learning difficulties faced by students.
Yes, absolutely true, and totally agree with you, Ms. Nabiha. Thank you very much for an insightful session, and thank you all for attending and like being with us throughout the whole thing. And now I just wanted you to know that this session is recorded, and you will have the recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, hopefully by the weekend. So you can follow our YouTube channel to get notified about our latest videos and recordings, because we actively do that on YouTube. You can also follow our pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to know more about our future courses, events, and updates that we dedicate for teachers. For the certificates, you will receive your certificate of attendance for today's session within 2 weeks, and it will be sent to your email addresses that you've registered to this webinar with. If you have any further questions, if you need anything from our side, feel free to contact. So I'm sorry, I think there has been something with the internet, but anyways, if you need anything, if you need to know more about our services for teachers and schools, feel free to drop us an email at info@teachogen.com. I've put all the details on the chat pod for our social media handles, as well as our email address. Thanks again, and have a lovely night. Goodbye.